Welcome to Ciao Bella, hosted by me, Erica Firpo, a travel journalist based in Rome. Each episode of Ciao Bella, I sit down with Italy's creators, contemporary artists and artisans, designers, culinary experts, heritage brands, and innovative aesthetes, and more who are defining and redefining 21st century Italy. Pull up a chair and join in. Hey, welcome back to Ciao Bella. Today I am with Olimpia Zagnoli. Oz, as I fondly call you in my head. Ciao, Olimpia.
Ciao, Erica.
It's great to have you on Ciao Bella. I'm really excited. Though it's funny because I was thinking about this earlier as I was walking home. Olimpia is a designer and she's incredibly colorful, super visual. So, the best thing to do no matter what with you is to see your work. So this is going to be a little bit different. Everybody, I think right now, if you're listening, I want them all to go to your website really quickly so they can see the color and the life that you have as we're talking. But I'm really excited to have you on the podcast because I've been a big fan of your illustrations and your designs for some time. And I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what you're doing. You and I have been in a conversation earlier in the year about your voyage, let's call it, from Italy and back. And I'd love to share that with my Ciao Bella listeners.
Yeah, so I, as you said, I'm an illustrator, which means a lot of things, a lot of different things. I worked for many years in the editorial field, meaning I worked at illustrations for magazines, newspapers, book covers. And then for some reason, some new assignments started popping up that were more coming from brands, asking for collaborations for their merchandising or for their packagings, or customization of surfaces and that sort of like direction. So I started exploring this new kind of field. And it turned out to be really fun for me. So now I would say that I jump from, on different bases. Like I touch different bases with my work. And I really enjoy the fact that every day there's something new coming up and there's a new challenge, if you want to say.
I'd love to describe the kind of illustration that you do, because here's my take, and then please, knock it out of the park.
Yeah, sure.
But my take is it's a lot of beautiful, rich colors that between primary and complementary colors, and a lot of geometrical shapes. We're not talking realistic, brush stroke illustrations. We're not talking Norman Rockwell. We're talking geometric, bold, bright colors. And I know that we've seen your illustrations on the New Yorker. We've seen it in the New York Times. Is that correct? Is it Financial Times, The Guardian?
Yep.
Did I do a good job describing your illustrations?
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. Like, I think that, it's, let's say that I started, obviously as any kid with just like crayons and pencils and markers, and I really enjoyed that dimension. But when I obviously decided to kind of like keep doing what I was doing, because drawing for me was always like a source of joy, so I had to kind of like obviously find my own language. And I still like to experiment with different techniques and stuff while I do my sketches when I'm on holiday. So I have more time and more space to experiment. But then for my professional work, I felt the need to do something that communicated in a fresh way, but also very quick, if you want to say. So in order to do so, being also inspired by a lot of like graphic design from the States and Italy and Europe from the 60s. What I found for me was the best language was the language of synthesis. And to do so, you either do like screen prints, like they would do back in the days, or now you use a computer. So I started playing with the computer to see if it could give me back something as colorful as and flat as I wanted. And it wasn't so easy in the beginning because, of course, you're using a machine to kind of like translate something that it's a thought in your brain. But then after a while, I started to kind of like mold the computer in order to kind of like get, send back a message that looked like myself in a way or the other. I know it's a complicated concept, but it's very easy in reality. So I use a lot of shapes, clean shapes, if that means something, and colors.
Sure.
I spend a lot of time picking the colors for my work. So what I say is that sometimes I spend more time picking the colors than doing the actual drawing, because for me, color is about giving an atmosphere to the piece. So again, if I want to convey joy, explosion, happiness, or summer, I would pick obviously a specific palette, and if the message is another, I would pick another palette. So it seems very banal, but color can do a lot and change the mood a lot. So I like to spend a lot of time with it.
Well, the last time we spoke, I remember you telling me. I think you were saying that you've been living in New York, and you noticed that your palette was changing a bit, and then you came back to Italy, and you were changing your palette again. And I found that I loved hearing that, because it's like I love that you're constantly pushing color or pushing yourself through color.
So for me, every city, every place has an atmosphere. So obviously that reflects a lot into my work. Sometimes I feel the need to, visit new places and sort of like inhale the new colors. And it's so strange because, you visit a place and you dig a little bit into the culture and, the folklore, and you try to kind of like absorb all of these elements. And then you come back and you're in your studio, and you would like to use those hints right away in your work, and they don't come out. But then maybe like, I don't know, a week after or a month after, these new colors start popping up. So in a way, I think we need to give our brain some time to process all of these informations, and then it will surprise us at some point.
Yeah, what I think is cool? Sometimes when I look at your designs, because it's the plays of color and the geometric shapes, like I like to go out of focus and see the shapes that come out of the shapes, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're playing a lot with like negative space as well. And the other thing and we talked about this before, so but I think the colors and there's some shapes that remind me like of the 1990s, of these kind of richly saturated graphics that was happening then. And, that kind of, there was a show that I was thinking about that's not coming to my head, but it's just like, it's a celebration of that in a weird way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in some way or the other, I grew up in the late 80s and 90s. So I must have inherited something from that era as well, and there was a lot of like, I think, use of neon colors, bright colors, a lot of like glittery stuff, and a lot of different materials as well. Like I'm thinking obviously at any sort of plastic.
Exactly.
Obviously, unfortunately. But also like in fashion, a lot of like, interesting fake leathers, fake furs.
Oh God, yeah.
So I think that in a way or the other, I obviously was inspired by that as well. And to be honest, I would have never expected that to see, that style back again. Which, like it always happens. So things
Yeah.
all come back. But at the same time, I thought it was such a niche that I never thought it would come back. And now it's like full blown. So it's so interesting to see it, again, in young girls and young boys, and seeing like how they reinterpret those trends and those colors and those references.
Like all the rainbow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love, in fact, it's funny. I was thinking the same thing. Now I want to flash forward to the present, and I want to, because I think a lot of people, okay, if you're a fangirl like me, if you're an Oz fangirl like me, then you know where you've seen her work. And if you're not, but you actually have seen it, because I think it's pretty cool. Aside from the magazines, the collaborations that you've done. I know that you did Warby Parker, for people that love beauty. You've done the 8-hour, you did that beautiful label box for the 8-hour cream for Elizabeth Arden. So I think everybody now, I want everybody to start thinking, wait a minute, like I saw that Elizabeth Arden colorful, narrow, thin box with the kind of infinity symbol, and that's the 8-hour cream, and that's yours. And then you did that awesome, the Barilla box with the two women in the blue. I love it because it's blue and red. I don't know why those colors, they just make me happy. And that red that you chose. I know you did Uniqlo in Milan.
Yeah.
Can you share other things that you've done? That people might not realize are in their everyday lives?
Oh my God. I tend to forget everything I do. So I'm going to turn around and see if I have anything around me that can, sparkle my memory in a way or the other. So I've done a nice collaboration with Prada a few years ago. That was inspired by, vintage posters, vintage European posters for holidays. And it was kind of like a modern take on those posters. So we did a series of T-shirts and some accessories. So I'm seeing like next to me on a shelf, there's a pair of like big golden platforms, and the sole is one of the drawings that I did for the collection, and I wasn't expecting to see them turned into shoes, and they're really cool, and it was really kind of like a surprise. Yes,
the sole of the shoe. That's cool.
Yeah, and it's a platform shoe, so it's all the platform itself. It's an illustration, basically. And then I did some, collaboration with Italian brands. You mentioned Barilla. I did Perugina, which is a brand, chocolate brand, very, very historical brand. Some of you might be familiar with the Bacio Perugina. I work with Italian brand, fashion brand Marella, which is part of the Max Mara family. And we did several capsule collections of textile, which was really exciting because, again, it was a new thing for me to work on a series of patterns for, skirts and shirts and bags and that sort of stuff. There's a new collection for a brand that I cannot mention because it hasn't come out yet, but it will come back. It will come out soon in the US. And it's a series of, which was really fun to make, a series of, they're like ice cream pints.
Oh.
So they have a lot of flavors, and every flavor has a character on. So it will come out soon, and it's a really exciting project. It was really fun to make.
Do you know when that's gonna? Do you know when that's gonna come out?
I'm not sure.
So basically, the pints are going to become. If I were the super fan that I was, little collector's items.
Every flavor has a character, basically. So that was really that was really fun to make because you kind of had to reinterpret the flavor. but yes, I mean, if you take a look at my website or my Instagram, it's gonna come out at some point. I don't know when. Um,
Oh,
and
and my daughter wanted me to tell you that
yeah.
she has one of your 24-hour bottles.
Oh, nice. I have one in front of me right now and I use it every day. I'm very happy that I had to design one so that I have several of those bottles that I can use, in my everyday life, which is the good side of, working with brands sometimes, because you get to keep some of the stuff that you make for them. And sometimes they're just like very useful. For example, I just released a Moleskine notebook with Moleskine, and I use those notebooks every single day in my life. If I don't have a notebook with me, it's gonna be, very difficult for me to remember anything. So, they just came out, so they're gonna hopefully send me some, and I'm gonna use them to draw and, write down things, and yeah. So sometimes it's fun.
I just popped on the site, and I see this striped kind of profile.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks cool. I'm gonna have to. I'm a Moleskine geek, an old school. I usually only get the black ones. Like I'm old school Moleskine.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
So I'm just curious. So you do design on the computer? Is that like Procreate?
No, I mostly use Illustrator and Photoshop.
Okay, and then you're also doing hand drawings. Like
depends. It depends. Like it depends. Like I sketch mostly with pencils and pens on a real notebook, paper notebook, because I like the feeling of it, and I feel like writing and drawing on an actual notebook kind of like creates a connection with your brain that's faster than putting a device in between. And so when it's the time to sketch and sort of like get the ideas out, I think it's really nice to have a physical object in front of you, which is, a pen and a pencil. But then I translate those sketches into a computer drawing most of the times. But sometimes I also just go with it, and I keep doing, again, pencil, markers, whatever it is, collage, and the final piece is a collage or a drawing or a pencil drawing, for example. So it really depends, and so yeah, I like to change, but let's say that the majority of the stuff you see, it's made on the computer.
So I'm curious, what kind of pencils do you like?
So I like to buy stationery and pencils and, markers and everything. But then I tend to lose everything as well. So I'm not a snob. I kind of like draw with everything that I find closer to me. Usually the good stuff, I tend to lose it or leave it like in their packages forever. And so I never really use it. But right now, if you're a nerd, I can tell you a couple of things that I'm using. And just like I like to draw or write with a Uniball, which is just like a gel pen. And then I'm using my Caran-d'Ache. It's like one of those metal. I don't know how they're called. It's one of those metal. In Italy, we call them portamine, which is a pencil.
Oh, that you put the graphite into. Yeah.
How would you call that in English?
I would probably call it the pencil that I put the graphite into. But okay. It does have a technical name. Okay, so I'm a pencil nerd, but obviously not that much of a nerd to know the actual name, and I'm gonna have to look that up. But I want to tell you.
It's okay. Everybody understood.
But I want to tell you what I've now, as you were talking, I've decided that I really want you to do a collaboration with Blackwing. Have you ever seen Blackwing pencils? Yeah. Okay, that would be the best collaboration, Olimpia and Blackwing. Oh, I would love that. You mentioned Max Mara. I know you were born in Emilia Romagna, correct?
Yeah, I was born in Reggio Emilia.
And I love Reggio Emilia, and the last time I was there, I did an art walk because there's the library, I think, that has the Solowit and the church. And now I know you're going to be having a show in November. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So I've been asked by a couple of institutions to make an exhibition in Reggio Emilia or the surroundings. So I was trying to think of something that would put all of these realities together and maybe make a bigger exhibition. And I was always drawn to the idea of sort of like giving back to the place where I come from, because I was born in Reggio Emilia and I left when I was 6 years old to move to Milan with my parents. And but I've always felt very, very connected to my hometown. And so the idea came, and we went to Reggio Emilia, me and Melania Gazzotti, which is the curator of the show, to see some of the locations and try to find a place that worked for us and worked for my works. And we finally found this beautiful building from it's from 1500 and it's a cloister. So it's called Chiostro di San Pietro. It's a beautiful venue, and the exhibition is gonna be opening on November 28th. It's gonna be developed in 7 different rooms, and there's also this beautiful cloister space that will be used as well for a sculpture garden. The idea is to display a collection of my works. So most of the works will be the works that I've done in the past 10 years. And there will not be only prints on show, but also like sculptures and light installations and other things to sort of like, show a little bit of the variety of what I've done in the past years. So I'm really excited, and even if it's not in a big city like Rome or Milan, I really hope that people would take the chance to go see the exhibition, of course, but also take the chance to see the city of Reggio and maybe the cities around it, Modena, Parma, because I think it's a great opportunity to discover the territory if people doesn't know it. So yeah.
I actually, it's funny. So I was just looking, it says November 28th, which I believe I'm free. And what I love Emilia Romagna. I love that area because actually one of the things, the first time I ever went to Reggio, I fell in love because of the Calatrava train stop.
Yeah.
So that gorgeous, it looks like the spine of a dinosaur that was left in the middle of the countryside. And then, one of the, it's a mix of that. The whole area has a mix of great food, interesting industry, great history. My husband, who's an archaeologist, is always like, that every town is something like 30 Roman miles apart, because it's like the perfect, because the Via Emilia goes through it. But also there's such great art, and so this just seems like, your show seems like the perfect, component to what's already there. So I can't wait. And you're absolutely right. This is a great opportunity for people to explore a little bit more of that area.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And the food, like, don't even get me started. So it's a great opportunity to spend a lovely day, at least in the surroundings.
Oh, it's so funny. I discovered I had never had this until 2 years ago, the erbazzone. And I was like, and then I was told it's like it's a Reggio Emilia thing. It's so good.
Yeah, it's specifically from Reggio. And last time I went, it was like a week or 2 weeks ago. I tried. It's not really traditional, so I'm gonna be very clear about that. But I tried an erbazzone with zucca inside, with squash. Which is kind of like a new recipe. So it's not the traditional one, but it was really good.
I would like to try that myself. Now let's get back to so you were talking, the show sounds like it's almost like I don't want to say retrospective, but a kind of flashback, flash forward to the past 10 years on your website. Now, one of the things that, is if people can't get to the show and are not spending ample time looking at your Instagram or my Instagram, because I will be putting a lot of images up when I see it, you can go to the website. And I think the cool thing about your website is, aside from an archive of the work you've done, you have a shop. And I love these images because it looks like, are they litho prints? I see some looks like prints, and then I see the tea towels, which are beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Olimpia Zagnoli shop. But what this is, I was laughing because I went to your website and I saw what looked like, I would either say, two casatine or two breasts. And I was like, oh, and I clicked on it and I was brought to another shop, which is Clodomiro. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm glad you clicked, because I thought about putting that sticker on my homepage. And I thought it was really fun and that people would be attracted to it and would click on it. But I never heard anybody until now telling me anything about that. So I don't know if it worked, but in your case, it worked. So
it totally worked. I was like, because I thought, I was like, wait, what are these? Like, because your site is so organized and they're slightly off, like in the sense that they're not lined up. So I was like, wait, this is. I was like, oh my god, I found an Easter egg in her site, and then I did.
It's like a Super Mario, treasure door into the unknown. So yeah, the breast takes you to my side project, which is called Clodomiro, which is my dad's name, which is an unusual name in Italy. So we don't really understand where it comes from, why my dad was called that, and my granddad before him. But anyway, it's an unusual job, and I think that I really like it. And also my dad used the shorter form for everything. So his name is Miro Zagnoli. So I thought it was interesting to kind of like bring back the full name and use it in full, to open this shop that it's kind of like a project that, we came up with one night talking, me and my dad, and we were like, oh, my dad is a photographer, and he's been working in design for a long time now. And again, I'm an illustrator, but I worked with some brands, and I've always been surrounded by design in my household or, in my city of Milan. So we both like objects and well curated things. So one night we were like, why don't we try and make our own project? Why don't we try and create our own objects? Which is obviously a good excuse to spend time together and have something to share, and spend our spare time on. And my dad said, yes, let's do it. Let's do a series of, the first objects were a series of ceramic plates. And he said, but I think that we have to find a theme for the shop. And I said, okay, what do you think could work? And he's like, I think erotica should be the theme, which for me was kind of strange because obviously it was coming from my dad.
Exactly.
So I was like, okay. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, I don't know. I mean, you'll be the designer. So you take the inspiration and you turn it into whatever you want. So we kind of like decided that would be, our kind of like core. And then we would move around it in, graphic ways. So we came up with this first collection of ceramic plates. Then we made some t-shirts, pillows. There's a vase, handmade vase that just came out, which I'm really happy about, because I've never actually designed an object from scratch. So it was my first experiment, and it's not easy because it's a lot of work and there's a lot of like steps that you have to take care of. And so it's another way to kind of like express yourselves and kind of like turn around what you've done. Like doing a vase, for example, it has a 3 dimensionality to it, right? So you kind of like have to expand the way you see your drawings, your creations, because what I'm used to is doing something that's like completely two-dimensional. So I do something on my sketchbook, and then it becomes a drawing on the computer, and then it gets printed on a magazine cover, for example. So it always stays in that sort of like dimension. Well, if you do something like a vase, you have to not only do the sketch, but think about what's going to be on the side and on the other side, and what's going to look from the above and from below. So it's such an interesting, again, occasion to not only spend time with my dad, but also to expand my perception of my work, and also it gives me space to make mistakes and to spend maybe like 3 to 4 years to work on prototypes, on samples and stuff. So it's a completely different rhythm than my usual work, which usually it gets done pretty fast.
Can I ask, where is this being made?
Most of the stuff are made in Italy, except from the plates that we wanted this ceramic to be really nice and thin and light, and so we had them made in Stoke-on-Trent, which is a place in the UK, which is very famous for ceramics and porcelain.
Yeah.
And it's the place where the Queen has her merchandising done. So we thought it would be a good place to go.
I mean, if it's good enough for her, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I love the plate. I love all of it. And I love also how you display it on your website on Clodomiro with these colorful, like, it's a highly saturated squares, and then the design just pops.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of work also to, figure out how to make a website run, and how, to, resize all the images and ask the models to collaborate and all those things, which I had no idea, to be honest. In the beginning, I thought it was going to be much easier than that. So it's a lot of work, and thankfully I'm quite busy with my other work, so I don't have all the time in the world to spend on this Clodomiro project. But I really enjoy to like keep it alive and keep it slow in a way, so that you can really spend time into making sure that the products that are as good as you would like to find them on the market.
You know what I just discovered? I didn't notice this, that Clodomiro has its own Instagram. And both what I love about your Instagram, and now that I just discovered Clodomiro's Instagram, is I love how they're not just what you're doing, but what the inspirations are and what you like. Like, it's like a peek into both minds of yours.
Yeah, I think that this idea of having one theme that's like obviously quite wide is not very narrowed. So the idea of sex confidence and body positivity and art, I think it gives me sort of like a hint, so I can look for pictures that kind of like fit into this category. And I collect them everywhere. If I'm going to a museum, if I'm online, if I, look at an old book. And so I save all of these images for the Clodomiro Instagram, which is at Dear Clodomiro. And so over the years, I've put together a collection, kind of like a mood board, if you want to call it, of, kind of like sensual, sexual, but also like very, just very beautiful images that have to do with, art and the body and love and sex sometimes. So in a way, I think it's a good exercise also to kind of like keep researching and keep collecting all of these informations and images to for a good use for something that will turn out to be something else in the future, perhaps.
think that's pretty cool. And I'm so happy that you're sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Well, so here's my last question for you. Okay, so you've got a show coming up. You can't tell us about the ice cream, but you can just let us know that we have to eagerly and hungrily await it. What else can we expect from Olimpia?
Oh my God. I don't know. Like, I'm working these days on, obviously the main effort is the exhibition, because it's the, 2 months to the opening. So it's obviously like a race at this point. And I am working with a fashion brand as well these days, for a collection of drawings that will come out soon. I think, not sure, but I think. And for these drawings, I chose an illustrative style that's a little bit, if you want to call it a style, let's say a mood that's a little bit different from the usual works that you see. I mean, the colorful pop colors that you see. I have been working as well with a design brand. I think I can tell you this because it's going to come out today. So I collaborated with Zanotta, which is a famous design brand here in Italy, and it's famous for many things, but I think mostly for the sacco, which is this very iconic armchair. Which is literally a bag, and you've seen it in a lot of like movies from the late 60s and 70s, and it's a beautiful example of design from the late 60s, because it's fun, it's made for everyone, for kids, for adults, and it's colorful, and it really changes like the spirit of a room. And for some reason, I find a lot of connections to my work because of the shape of the armchair, because of the colors, but also because of this sort of like ironic aspect, because everyone that sits on this chair, it's gonna be, not composto, in Italian, but scomposto, meaning that you're kind of like upside down. So it's sort of like give you another take on being in order, being polite, being in your best shape. And this year they won the Compasso d'Oro for the Sacco chair, which is a very prestigious design prize award. And so they asked me to create a poster of this Sacco chair, which is going to come out, I think, today. And so again, like, I think it's interesting because you get to see, the behind the scene of, a family owned brand in this case, but, all these realities that we know so well, especially in Italy. There are a lot of realities like that, a lot of like brands that are famous all over the world, but at the end of the day, maybe they're just like a small company run by a family. So it's always interesting to get a chance to, go visit them, see the archives, touch the materials. And again, it sort of like deepens the sort of relationship between their language and my visual language. So I think it's a great opportunity to expand the concept of drawing in a way or the other.
Very cool. I think I agree. And I think it's I don't know, it sounds like the perfect fit. I'm just looking at images because I think you said something, you said it's very playful and somewhat ironic, these chairs, and they're sort of like, I would call them very stylish beanbag chairs for for someone who has not seen them. They're not a beanbag, but they're very comfortable, like without framework chairs. Correct?
Yeah, I think beanbag is pretty accurate.
And I think like you, it's funny because I think they kind of, in a weird way, as they're kind of the chair personification of your personality, from what I've gathered. Just not.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great fit for both of you. And also, I think it sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, that's one of the things that ever since I started, because I think what happens with Olimpia Zagnoli designs is that they creep into your field, your visual field, without you knowing it. And then you start noticing them and they pop up in different areas. And what I've noticed is you are very playful, and you have this, sometimes it's very tongue in cheek, and I love it. I really enjoy how your designs can be sometimes really direct, but no matter what, they're playful, and whether or not you realize it's you behind it, or if you just happen to see this colorful imagery that all of a sudden you're taken with, it just kind of it infiltrates. In my opinion, you infiltrate, and I think that's great.
That sounds a bit scary, but okay.
No, it's totally scary. I mean, I would definitely think it. Yeah, I would watch out. But again, it's like it's one of those things that I think design is. I think that's the beauty of design. Design is subliminal. It's subtle, and it creeps in when you don't even realize it. And you do that very well. And I recommend that everybody keep an eye on your Instagram page so we can all see when everything comes out. We can see everything that you're doing. Olimpia, I'm so happy that you took the time and that my computer worked today. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you, Erica. It was fun.
Hey guys, a quick update on Olimpia. Though her exhibition was postponed, you can catch 3 of her larger-than-life sculptures, Trio con Brio, in situ in Reggio Emilia. And remember how she casually mentioned she was doing something with ice cream? Take a look at Coconut Bliss, an organic plant-based ice cream company which has just launched 2 soft-serve flavors whose packaging is designed by none other than Oz. And finally, Olimpia's book Kaleidoscopica comes out March 21st on Lazy Dog Press. Keep up with Oz on www.olimpiazagnoli.com, and remember to look for the Easter egg. And you know what? Don't worry about any spelling. All episode details are shared on my website, ciaobella.co. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ciao Bella. If you'd like to know more about today's guest, please visit ciaobella.co and click on the podcast link, or go directly to ciaobella.co/podcast. Want more Italy? You can find all my episodes on iTunes and Spotify and Stitcher. When you have time, subscribe to iTunes and rate the podcast. What are you waiting for? And if you want to be part of the podcast, email me or DM me your Italy questions. To learn more about me and my work, go to my website, ericafirpo.com, and follow my Italy adventures on Instagram at ericafirpo. Ciao, Bella! And a very big thank you and hug to Massimiliano Yonta and Disc to Disc Studios, the producers of Ciao Bella, who continue to make me sound and feel great.